Hello, Michigan gardeners. This is Doug at Buzzard Farm. We're on Verona Road, just outside Marshall, Michigan. It is May 5th. It's a Wednesday. Michigan has pulled one of its good weather twists, and we are going to be in the 50s for the next several days. Potential frost freeze warnings at night. Not so much freezes, but definitely frosts. Down into the lower 30s. But it doesn't stop me from doing today's job, which is our bare root strawberry plants came in the mail yesterday. So we have 500 Dickens. It's a new variety out of Cornell. Apparently the propagator at Cornell is naming them after favorite authors, this one being Charles Dickens, and it's supposed to produce like the Dickens. With strawberries, you're always a year away from knowing whether a new variety is really any good or not, because the first year you plant it, and then you pick the blossoms off the first year so that the plant gets more vigorous. It doesn't put its energy into producing fruit the first year because it's a small transplant at that point, and it's very stressful. So you take the blossoms off as they show up. Don't let it produce berries the first year, and that causes it to push out more runners. And if you've ever seen strawberry plants, they shoot out almost like a spider plant. If you've seen one of those, they shoot out an arm or a tendril, and at the end of that, another strawberry plant forms. And if you put that into the soil, push it in a little bit, or even if it rests on moist soil for a while, it will root in and form another strawberry. So our operation here, we do this kind of in a combination technique, and maybe this will help some of you. We plant them a single line down the black plastic. This is a bundle of 25 Dickens strawberries. Take them apart. This is all you're getting. That's one little plant. And it will grow into a fairly nice plant itself, but as I said, we'll send out runners, and then we'll want to set the runners. But we started in the black plastic by making a hole as small as possible. That's always my goal, so that initially when the small plant is growing, we don't have to weed as much. Then as it shoots out the runners, we remove the black plastic. It's a lot of cutting, it's very tedious, but it's well worth it to save all that initial weeding. And then we set the runners, and when I pull the plastic off and set those runners, push them into place, sometimes I put a rock on it, sometimes I dig a little hole in the dirt and push the strawberry plant that's forming at the end of the runner into that dirt that I've loosened up. What I then do is put straw in around those runners and try to, again, minimize the weed growth potential. That's the biggest challenge you'll have with strawberries, is keeping the weeds out. They are basically a perennial garden in a row, and you'll end up weeding and spending all your time weeding if you can't take some preventative measures to get the strawberries to fill in before the weeds take over. You'll see a lot of southern states are growing their berries. They'll put 2 rows down, one on each side of the drip line that's underneath that black plastic, and then what they do, either that berry plant has been bred to not produce many runners, or they simply cut the runners off, and all the energy goes into what's called the mother plant, and they pick on that plant only. That's called a plasticulture program. We're doing what's a little bit of plasticulture at the beginning because we use that to help reduce weeds, but then we remove it and make a matted row that's about 2 foot wide or so, and it gives you all those runners, of course, have those little berry plants on it at the end of them, and if they set into the ground and they root in, they produce berries also. So you get a lot more berries off it, but it can be very labor intensive keeping the weeds out. So I'll show you, I'm planting again about every 12 inches or so. Again, I plant probably a little tighter than I'm really supposed to, but I'm trying to get that row to fill in, and so I don't have to weed too much. So I'm just going to plant 2 or 3 of these and then show you what we're going to do, and then I'll recap at the end. So I'm just using my fingers because the soil I ran the drip irrigation yesterday to get a little moisture in the ground. We don't have much moisture in Michigan still. They speak of rain every day, but it's so small an amount, we really don't get enough to really help ourselves out of the drought situation that we're in at this point in Michigan. So I just planted those 3, gonna water them in. And I'd already planted 25 back here. So basically I have another 450 or so to go. I'm gonna have a few left over that we'll sell at the greenhouse. We'll pot them up and sell them to people that are interested in getting some strawberry plants this year. If they're not, it's always nice to have an extra strawberry plant in case one of these dies out, misses, and you want to put a strawberry plant in that got growing down by the greenhouse in a pot. If I swing the camera, this is the 4 rows of strawberries over here that we planted 3 years ago. So I guess 4 years ago. So this is the 3rd year we'll be picking on these strawberries. Good news is they look really good. Bad news is the freeze that we had on April 20th and 21st, because I didn't think it was going to hurt them. I didn't see any blossoms, but the blossoms had emerged enough out of the ground. They hadn't opened or anything, but they'd emerged enough that that freeze we had on April 20th, 21st, we were down 25, 24 degrees out here at the farm for a couple of mornings. It did kill a lot of the blossoms. So our strawberry picking this year will be more, we don't do a U-pick, but for ourselves to sell at the market, it's going to be more limited. It's even killed some of the later variety strawberry flowers that had they must have been just up out of the ground enough for that freeze to get them. The challenge over the next about 5 days, I'd say, based on listening to the weather reports, some of them are all over the place at this point. The challenge is I'll pull a row cover material over the berries. The first row, I've actually hooped them so I can keep the row cover up off the berry blossoms. There are some good blossoms that are starting to open now, and if we get a frost, and even Saturday morning looks kind of maybe 29-ish according to some weather apps. That's what I would consider a freeze when you go below 30. I'm going to try to protect them as much as possible, but there's no guarantee in farming. And the other rows, I'm just going to pull the row cover material over, much like people would put a blanket or a towel over their sensitive plants outside. But this is it's an Agribon material that we buy through an agricultural company, and we can use it to help protect the flowers on the blossoms and anything that we've planted that might be sensitive at this point of the year. We're hoping this is the end of it when we get through about next Tuesday, May 11th, but you never know. Our last frost date is typically around the 15th of May, and we could have a late frost freeze event this year. It's hard to say. Okay, until next time, I'll see you. I got to get planting a bunch more strawberry plants, and if you're interested in buying some, we will have some left over at the farm market. Okay, thanks. See ya.